Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the WM32 Football Podcast. Now, today was supposed to be Derby Day in North London, and obviously, as we know, with what is happening in the world, it is not taking place today, unfortunately, for fans of both sides. So today we are going to delve a little bit into North London derbies and things all North London, Tottenham and Arsenal related. So I've been joined today by somebody who you would have seen and heard of a couple of times already. So I've been joined today by Nelson Natumba to represent the red half of North London, along with myself, who will be representing the better half of North London. So I'll be representing Tottenham. Nelson, great to have you back on with us again, and obviously chatting everything North London. First of all, how did you envisage the game sort of panning out today, given the form of your boys?
First of all, great to be back here again. It's always a pleasure, especially talking things, all North London. In terms of today's game, that would have gone on. I believe I actually had high hopes heading into the fixture, simply because we were on a good run of form. I believe we were undefeated so far this year before everything had stopped. So I think that momentum was definitely, I felt like that was something that was going to be within our favour in terms of how we performed. But as you know, in a game of football of 90 minutes, anything can happen. And the North London derby is a perfect example of anything that can happen, especially with the historic, legendary fixtures that we've had, that Arsenal and Tottenham have shared over the many centuries. So, yeah, I mean, I believe that we were heading into the game on a good note, and I actually believe that we would have won the game. But obviously, many people may not have believed that. But I had a good feeling going into the game. Yeah.
No, that's excellent. Bit of a question mark, I think, over you winning the game because, Mourinho's obviously in charge of Tottenham these days, and he very, very rarely loses to you boys. That's one thing that I've noticed fairly recently. There's been a few videos going around on social media and whatnot, and you look at Mourinho's record against Arsenal, and it's one that does stand up amongst other coaches and managers. And I think from a Tottenham perspective, all right, the football that we had been playing before lockdown, if you like, wasn't the greatest. Decimated with injuries, especially towards the top end of the pitch. However, I do feel that Harry Kane would have been fit for this game. I think he would have made sure that he would have come back and would have been fit for this game and to play in. I also think he would have scored because it's Harry Kane in a North London derby. 10 in 10, that stacks up. I think personally we would have nicked it just because it's Jose Mourinho against Arsenal, and the whole occasion, if you like, of that first North London derby at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and everything else that goes with that. I just think Jose would have got it spot on. I think he would have got into the lads, and yeah, I personally feel that perhaps we would have nicked it. I think it would have been a close game, but I feel like we'd have nicked it. And obviously, the first North London derby at the Emirates, that was an interesting affair. And I think both teams were struggling to. I know it was early on in the season, but I think both teams were just about sort of just starting to get going in terms of the actual season and whatnot. And obviously, the game ended in a draw. How did you see that particular game, the reverse fixture?
One thing that I think I've said before, being on the show and being on the podcast with you, Wes, is that the North London derby is full of entertainment. This is not me being biased just because I support Arsenal, but I do think that the North London derby brings the most entertainment, like especially if you're a neutral football fan and you're looking at. I mean, we have many incredible derbies out there in the world. You've got your Glasgow derby. You've got the main Turkish derby between Fenerbahce and Galatasaray. That's known as a crazy one. You've got Boca Juniors and River Plate, and those are like one of the big ones that people kind of historically remember. But in terms of entertainment, I don't think they come anywhere as close as the North London derby, especially in the last few decades. It's been up there, probably for me, as the best. In terms of the last North London derby, the reverse fixture at the Emirates was I think it was evenly matched. You're right, because both teams heading into the game were kind of mixed, mix and match. I think they had a mixed bag of form heading into that game. And one thing that I think I've noticed in the last few North London derbies between Arsenal and Tottenham is that I think no matter where it's played, I think it's just like a big cup final. So anybody could take the points. It was a very entertaining game. You guys obviously headed into the half time leading 2-1, and I do think that goal by Lacazette completely changed the game, because I think if it had remained at 2-0, I do think that you would have won the game. I think that goal by Lacazette really changed the course of the game. But I think that game overall evenly matched. Both teams, I think you could tell that form affected their performances. And I think that was why it kind of remained at 2-2. So but nonetheless, it was definitely an entertaining game.
Yeah, 100%. And being in the ground for that game, obviously I was there myself, and for me it was such a strange atmosphere being a Tottenham fan that day. It was like you mentioned there about a cup final. It was almost like it was your cup final. And I don't mean to sound like rude or anything like that, but you're in the away end, and you're hearing Arsenal fans giving it large and all of this kind of thing, but there was no sort of reaction from the Tottenham fans, which I thought was very, very strange, and very, very sort of unlike us, really. And yeah, sort of being in the ground at the game, I actually started off quite a few different songs myself, because I just got the feeling that something wasn't quite right amongst our set of supporters. And it's probably one of the only times I've actually heard the Emirates generate some noise. But I completely agree with your point that the Lacazette goal just before half time definitely changed the whole course of that game and the whole dynamic of it. Obviously the crowd got behind the team at that point from an Arsenal perspective, and I think it dragged you guys through that particular game after that goal for a little bit. And whatnot. So yeah, and like I say, that particular moment in that game was a real gutting one for Spurs fans, because I think we sort of knew, like, look, obviously it's never good to concede just before half time, but you boys are certainly in that second half come out and you had a bit more of a spring in your step, whereas I think beforehand we had a little bit more control and a bit more dominance on the game. I wouldn't say there was too many clear-cut chances, but in terms of possession and whatnot, I think we dominated the ball a little bit more, and I don't think that has happened a lot, certainly in North London derbies over the past few seasons, especially when it's as if the clubs are sort of real neck and neck. But yeah, I don't think we've dominated the ball that well in the North London derby, especially at the Emirates, because Tottenham's record at the Emirates is absolutely horrendous. We've won twice since it opened. One in the league and one in the League Cup. So yeah, it's always one of those fixtures. I don't think many fans particularly like Derby Day. It's obviously one of those times that it comes round, twice, maybe, twice a year, unless you get drawn in the cups, you may get a bit more. But I think, it's just one of them, like, right, we'll have it, bit of banter amongst fans, everything like that. But then once it's done, like the game's done, it's over type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I say, like you said, that reverse fixture, it was a tight and cagey affair, and I did think we might have nicked it. I think Harry Kane had a good chance, and and whatnot. But I mean, that game seems so long ago, and whatnot. It's almost as if it's in a completely different era and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know if you feel if you feel the same.
I agree. It was definitely, it just happened so long ago. Like, as soon as you asked me the question, I had to really remember like the main highlights of the game, because it was just so long ago that it happened. But yeah, I think it was a intriguing thing that you said regarding the course of the game, like you being there yourself and just seeing that it was tough. I mean, not tough, but it was just strange that you guys weren't kind of reacting to all the, I guess, the banter that were coming your way from the Arsenal fans, which makes sense. But I think, the game, no, I think overall the game was just definitely evenly matched. And I think heading into this game, I think because the fact that it was played at the new Tottenham Stadium, I think the atmosphere would have been electric. I think both sets of fans would have definitely gave it their all because, like you said, first game at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, you guys definitely want to win the first North London derby there, but we also have that incentive to try and win it there and be like, do you remember the first game played at the North London derby? At the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Yeah, that was us. We kind of So there was bragging rights is definitely in there, especially the like you said, like at the time that we faced you in the reverse fixture. Yeah, it did feel like a cup final because we weren't in a good run of form, and the fans were definitely getting restless with the manager at the time, which was Unai Emery. They pretty much didn't believe in his tactics anymore, and some of them had lost patience. So I think this, like I said earlier, with the entertainment factor, this definitely would have been a one for the ages, and probably would have reminded everybody how great the derby is. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think you picked up a point there about the fans getting restless with Unai Emery, and it was almost, I think, from a certain perspective, I think you could almost feel it. But then from the Arsenal fans, it was like, well, we're not doing that great, but we know we can get a result against Tottenham. It was almost as if like a lot of fans were going, yeah, we're not great, but it's Tottenham kind of thing. And you almost had that little bit of smugness and a bit of arrogance to go, well, it's Tottenham, like, yeah, we're not really bothered, we'll still win, all of that kind of thing. And like I say, the way we sort of played that day, I don't think we played that bad, from what I can remember, certainly. But yeah, I just think, like you said, that Lacazette goal just changed everything. I actually thought in the end, like I mentioned earlier, that Kane had a good chance. I think Arsenal had a few good chances towards the end, and if not, if memory serves me rightly, there was a goal ruled out for offside right towards the end. And you can imagine what it was like in the ground. Obviously, all the Arsenal fans are going mental, all the Spurs fans are gutted and everything like that. And then when it got ruled out, I think it was by VAR.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. There was a certain sense of relief, shall we say, in the away end. From the Tottenham perspective, to see that one get chalked off. And I've mentioned Harry Kane before. Nelsie is the man that usually comes up trumps for Spurs in North London derbies. But who would you say in that current Arsenal team and that Arsenal setup would have been the potential match winner for you boys on Derby Day?
That's a good question. The one thing that I know is guaranteed in a North London derby right now with the current squad is that number 10 that plays in Lily White, and like he's gonna bag a goal. Like, his record is ridiculous, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's the all-time top scorer in North London derbies, or he's close to breaking it. I'm not too sure, but correct me if I'm wrong. But his record in these games is exemplary, and this is what we've been crying out for ages, for a striker to kind of be able to produce in the big games. From the present Arsenal squad, I think, based on the last kind of three or four matches that we've had, I would have said Aaron Ramsey if he was still in the squad, because Ramsey does come up big. He scored obviously that season where obviously unfortunately Aubameyang missed the last minute pen when you guys were still at Wembley. He scored the goal at Wembley. He loves the game at Wembley, Rambo, and he did come on and change the game when we beat you guys 4-2 2 seasons ago. Um, but I am going to give the nod to Lacazette simply because he's been our big game player in his time at Arsenal. People obviously can talk about his goals scored away from home. It's not the best, but at the Emirates, he definitely has turned up, and he did produce a good performance as well. I talked about that game where Luiz saved Aubameyang's penalty in the last minute. Lacazette did put in a good performance that game. I remember the season before Wenger's last season, he set up Alexis for his for the second goal when we beat you guys 2-0 as well. And obviously this season and last season, he actually scored in both North London derbies. So I think Lacazette is the guy. And I think as well, Lacazette, being the new signing that he was 2 to 3 years ago, and being able to understand what this derby means to the fans, I think that's why I give the nod to him, because he instantly knew how much this derby meant to us and how much blood, sweat, and tears that you got to put out there on the pitch for 90 minutes against you guys. So I'm gonna give the nod to him. In second place, I'll probably go Aubameyang. He has scored some. I mean, he scored a wonderful goal last season, and I do think that he would have wanted to come back with a vengeance as well after his penalty miss that last season, especially away from home. So I'm sure he would have wanted to get a bit of revenge. But I'm going to give the nod to Lacazette. I think he's the one that kind of, because obviously you've got to score goals to win, and I think it's a battle between the strikers at the end of the day. When it comes to North London derbies, and you know Kane's going to get your goals, but sometimes with Arsenal you never know. But you can all, I think, with Lacazette's kind of recent record, you can count on him. Yeah.
Good shout. I like that. With Aubameyang, I was at the game at Wembley, the one where he missed the penalty. All I'm saying is that certain strikers in that game score penalties and others don't. Obviously Harry Kane bagged the penalty in that same game, and Aubameyang didn't. And actually, for you boys missing out on Champions League by a point, you can look back at different points in the season, but I think that particular moment was obviously a big moment, and I think I wouldn't say your season, that was like a season defining moment, but I think after then I don't think Arsenal were really that same side as you was beforehand. But I must say, give credit to Arsenal on that day. That was a very, very good performance by you boys. You lot really turned up that day and put in a good performance against us. I don't know what it was about because I've not seen that in recent North London derbies, but I think Unai Emery had got you lot fired up for that one for sure. And like I say, it was a really good performance from you boys. I know it pains me to say it, but yeah, like I say, it was a good performance, and yeah, Ramsey certainly changed it. And like you said, in that 4-2 game, he definitely changed everything, I think, in that game as well. But yeah, I think from a Spurs perspective on match winners, obviously Harry Kane goes without saying. I think you were right as well when you mentioned that his goal record's probably the best in North London derbies. But then I think second to that is probably Adebayor, which probably will surprise a lot of people. But yeah, I think Harry Kane is the one for us, and I think a player who has become vital for Tottenham, Lo Celso. My goodness, what a player he has turned into in a Spurs shirt, because it's very, very stop-start, in the first part of the season. And then Mourinho's come in and he's just been a breath of fresh air, really. I think obviously what was happening with the Eriksen situation, whether he was staying or going, and Lo Celso's just come in and really, I don't think Tottenham miss Eriksen anymore because we've got him. I think also he potentially offers more in terms of off the ball than Eriksen does. I think they're very similar in the fact that they are creative players, and they spot passes and they can find little spaces in between lines and all of those kind of things. But yeah, I think Lo Celso would have been would have been another key player for Tottenham. And it's almost at the minute, if Lo Celso plays well, Tottenham play well. I know we've missed Harry Kane and even Son to a certain degree, but it's almost that, you know, and I mentioned earlier, our form hasn't been great and we've been struggling really. But Lo Celso's been that shining light, especially recently, with the bad turn in form. And obviously, it's not helped losing when we lost Harry Kane on New Year's Day to that hamstring injury, and then Son away at Villa. You know, he fractured his arm and everything else. So, you know, attacking wise, Tottenham have been short and have been left short. But no, Lo Celso's come in and you know, when he's been in the team, it's like, no, we need him. And when he hasn't been in the team, again, it's like, no, get him on, Jose, like get him on and get him on the pitch, get him on the ball and allow him to make things happen. So yeah, I think Lo Celso would have been key. I think special mention as well, I think, for Harry Winks, because I think when it comes to derby days, you want a certain type of player that sort of understands the game from a fan's perspective as well. Yeah. Like you mentioned Lacazette, where, you know, I know he's a foreign player, but you know, he's come in and he sort of understands the meaning of the game, what it means to the fans and the passion behind it all and everything like that. I think Harry Winks does that for Tottenham, and I think obviously with Winks being a Tottenham fan, he just understands it. And I think even his performance in that reverse fixture, I thought was excellent, and I perhaps saw a different side to Harry Winks than usual, because usually you associate Harry Winks with making things happen on the ball, but I think off the ball that day, Harry Winks, you know, at the Emirates stood up and was counted on 100%, and you know, he had a really good battle with Guendouzi, I think, throughout the game, and I think that would have potentially happened again if Guendouzi was to play. I think Winks would have probably started the game. So yeah, it'd have been interesting to see how that battle would have worked. So Nelson, in games gone by, who has been that one player that, from an Arsenal perspective, that no matter what their form is like, whether it's they are hitting a purple patch or they've been bang out of form, but you know, come Derby Day, they're gonna turn up and produce. From an Arsenal perspective, who was that player for you?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Very good question. Ooh. The thing is, some of the current squad right now haven't played in many North London derbies, so it's very hard to kind of distinguish and kind of pick a player out who would turn up on Derby Day. Like I said, if Ramsey was still in the squad, he'd be my number one pick. Lacazette has been a standout.
I mean, in games gone by, so in previous North London derbies that you've witnessed or been to, who has been that player for you that has turned up on Derby Day? So not out of the current crop, out of games gone by.
Okay, here we go. So this is the one. I believe that the person this is probably somebody that may have not been on some people's first thoughts come up, but the person that I'm going to mention is Patrick Vieira. Patrick Vieira, being the Arsenal captain, even put Tony Adams in there, because him being captain and him understanding what it means to the fans, no matter how bad their form was, I'm going to put both of them in, because I think they really understood what it meant to the fans. I think that really drove them on, especially Vieira. I think you watching games as well in the last 2 decades, you kind of get surprised that Vieira actually has scored some very important goals in the derby. You remember the quick counter-attacking breakaway goal at White Hart Lane. He scored another one, I think, season before that, where he grabbed the ball from midfield and ran I think 2/3 of the, I wouldn't exaggerate, say 2/3 of the field, but he stole the ball and just ran by himself and slotted it away. And just the way he, I'm getting speechless now talking about Patrick. I think his leadership as well, bring his leadership skills to the team as well, and making sure and addressing to the players that, hey, we may have hit a bad run of form, but understand what this means. This means that we are obviously at the time, it's like I said, it's bragging rights. Like, it's North London, the red of North London versus the white of North London. So, and understanding what it means to the fans. So, I'm gonna put Patrick Vieira just on top and Tony Adams just below. But I think for me, Patrick Vieira was the one who would always turn up for a North London derby. He was elegant on the ball, and was very hardworking off it, crunching tackles. The intangibles that many people don't check to see, like telling people what to do in the moment and encouraging his teammates and just willing them on. I think that's why I'd pick Patrick as the guy who stood out for me in derbies. At first, like, people probably would have assumed that I'd go for Thierry Henry because of the goals that he scored, but I don't think he scored many goals against Tottenham. Like, you can recall the goals that, the solo goal that he scored in 2003, 2004, that season. But for me, I'm not looking at the goals that were scored. I think I'm just looking at the overall, over the course of 90 minutes, putting blood, sweat, and tears out there on the pitch. I'm going to go with Patrick Vieira. So I'm going to stick with that choice.
No, I think that's a great choice, to be fair. And I remember both of those Vieira goals that you mentioned. And I remember, I think one was in a 5-4 game. And, watching that as a young kid as I was at the time, I was just thinking, this is mental. Like, it was almost like a bit of a basketball game as well, in the fact that, you attack, we attack, all of that kind of jazz going with that. And yeah, I definitely remember. And I always have this picture with Vieira. When you mention Vieira and scoring goals, I always have this picture that he scores like a bit of a trademark goal.
Yeah.
And I think one of his trademark goals came in that game. So it was almost like, like you mentioned, he broke from deep, played it out wide, it got cut back, and he almost like swept it into the corner.
Yeah.
And that's always a goal. Like I say, that's like a picture that I always have with Vieira when people mention about him scoring goals. And you mentioned there as well the other one at White Hart Lane with the quick counter attack. Yeah, I certainly remember those two goals for sure. And whatnot. And I'm surprised you didn't go with Thierry. But then I think your reasoning is probably fair as to why. I mean, everybody, as you mentioned, remembers that famous goal at Highbury, and I still wish Matty Everington brought him down on the halfway line and and whatnot, and stopped him in his tracks, and everything else. And I think there was even a point there where he's up against Ledley King, and I think maybe Ledley just dived in just that half a second too quick. And whatnot. And obviously, Thierry's mentioned Ledley before in saying that he's the he's the hardest opponent that he's ever played against, and things like that. So yeah, obviously it's not, most of my time obviously growing up watching Spurs Arsenal hasn't been great. Arsenal usually coming out on top, and I'm having to get reassurance from my dad, that everything's going to be all right, and it doesn't matter and everything like that. And he's trying to reassure, but obviously I'm in the biggest mood because we just lost to Arsenal, and then me knowing that I've got to go into school and get a load of stick off my mates at the time and everything else like that. But then I think over the last few years that dynamic has changed a lot, and I think it's changed massively. But I think for me, and as for players gone by that would stand up and be counted in a North London derby, I don't think you can sort of go past Rafa van der Vaart. Love the goal against you boys, and is one of his famous quotes when asked his favourite Tottenham goal. He says it's quite simple. All the goals against Arsenal and things like that. And I mean, I could be here all day talking about Van der Vaart and whatnot. And he just he got everything about Tottenham, and we got everything about him. Down to a T, like 100%. And yeah, like I say, he scored some really important goals for us in North London derby. So Rafa's definitely up there for me. And I think there was even a point where he put sort of Wilshere in his place a little bit, as well, and just sort of let him know who was boss on the football pitch in that time, and stuff like that. I think Moussa Dembele has to come into play as well. I mean, if anybody knows me, they know how much I love speaking about Moussa Dembele, and he is literally my greatest of all time. But there's one derby day that sticks out for me with Moussa Dembele, and it was the 1-0 at Wembley. And it was our full season at Wembley, if you like, and I'd just never seen anybody marshal a 3-man midfield in that way before. I think Arsenal had a midfield three of Xhaka, Wilshere and Ozil that day. And I remember the atmosphere that day was electric. Spurs fans in brilliant voice. And for any of the people that are listening, if you was at that game, you'll know what I'm talking about. And Arsenal fans, I don't know if it was the noise from the Tottenham fans just droned you out, but you boys seemed very, very quiet that day. And I just remember Dembele just marshalling Xhaka, Wilshere and Ozil all on his own. Like nobody could get the ball off him. No one could get near him. He was flying into tackles and winning the ball back, and all sorts. And I was just there like, wow, what a performance by a player, and in a game of that magnitude as well, to do it there. And obviously Wembley's a much bigger pitch than White Hart Lane as well. So for him to get about the pitch, and obviously like at that time, because Dembele's injuries were coming a bit more frequent, and everything else, I just thought that was just an unbelievable performance. So I would, the first person that springs to mind when I talk about Spurs Arsenal is Rafael van der Vaart, and those players that do come to light. Dembele certainly, and obviously Harry Kane with his record has to come into it. But obviously Harry Kane is in the team now, but no, players that have gone by, I'd certainly think Rafa and Moose for sure come spring to mind in those North London derbies. So Nelson, moving on from games gone by, players gone by, and everything else like that, what we're going to do is we're going to go for a combined 11, and it's going to be out of our current squads.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a plan? Does that sound all right?
Yeah, it does sound great to me. Let's move forward with it. Yeah.
So here's how it's going to be. So the formation we're going for is a 4-2-3-1, just because that's the formation that both teams play at the minute. Yeah. So we're going to obviously start with a goalkeeper. Make a case then for Bernd Leno.
Well, Bernd Leno, German goalkeeper brought from Bayer Leverkusen. I think he has been a very good signing for us. And I think there's two players that have saved our season this year. One of them has been Aubameyang, with the amount of goals that he scored. And the second one would be Bernd Leno. I think obviously our defense hasn't been the best, and it hasn't helped him in a sense that he hasn't got a good defense in front of him. But the amount of saves that he's made, I think I think he leads the league in saves. But it makes sense knowing our defense is quite leaky, and the fact that we can't seem to keep a lead or keep a clean sheet at all, that he's made the most saves. And he saved a lot of points. I'm not sure how many points he saved for us, but I know he saved us countless of points. Not countless of points, but a very important number of points since he's joined the club. So I think that's my case with Bernd Leno, the fact that he still played at a very good elite level, with what's in front of him, unfortunately, which has been mediocre. So I think that's my case for putting Leno in goal. I'll let you go ahead with Luiz.
I mean, Hugo Boss has been a top goalkeeper for a number of years, and comes with the experience on an international level, I would say more than Bird Leno. He's captain not only of Tottenham but of France, and I think if you look at that France team, it's glittered with talent and stars throughout. But I just think Hugo, with his experience, he's played in big games not only for club but also for country, whereas I think Leno hasn't really had that in terms of experience with Germany because of Neuer and more recently Ter Stegen being ahead of him. And okay, Luiz from a distribution perspective may not be the greatest, but I think you can almost caveat that with the fact that at times he will come up and produce a save out of nowhere. And I think if anybody was to watch back the first game of the season and any sort of North London derbies, Luiz makes saves at just crucial times in games. They may not be the best save, but it just comes at a time whereby either Spurs are on top and you boys have hit us on the counter, or you boys are on top and we just need our goalkeeper to keep us in it. So I think Hugo for me is gonna get my vote, just because, like I say, he has come up with some crucial saves, and I think obviously the most recent one being that Aubameyang penalty miss, 90th minute, everything that's going on in and around not only the game, the stadium, the context, what that would have meant for the season, then probably going forward, everything else. I think Hugo. For me, just over Leno.
I mean, I'm not mad. I think Hugo, with his experience, definitely you can't argue with that. So I can move forward with Hugo and goal.
Hugo in net, lovely.
Hugo
1-0, 1-0 Spurs taking an early lead in this one, lovely. Next position, right back. This will be interesting.
I think in defence, Arsenal can't really make much of a case. I don't think I can really make much of a case for, we could instantly.
Have you seen our back four? And you think you can't make a case? You don't know who I've got to put at right back, do you?
I know, but I think right back is the only position where we can actually get something out of it, because I could argue right now that Ainsley Maitland-Niles has performed better at right back than Serge Aurier has ever done at his career at Spurs.
Listen. Juan Foyth, who is a centre back by trade, done more bits at right back last season than Serge Aurier has this season, and Serge Aurier has played virtually most of the season at right back. And yet Juan Foyth, it was like when he was fit, I think Spurs fans were literally waiting for him to be fit so he could play at right back, so he wouldn't have to deal with Serge Aurier.
Yeah, you've even got, was it? I think the game this season, the reverse fixture at the Emirates. I think Davinson Sanchez played at right back as well.
He did.
I remember his shift was good as well. He put in a good shift against Aubameyang on the left. So I think we can agree that Serge Aurier shouldn't really be in the squad. But in terms of who to select, I think I'm going to go with Hector Bellerin's experience. Him being a young captain that he is now, like him being one of the captains at the club, and him coming into the squad very early, and learning from the likes of Wenger at his time there as well. I think I'm going to shoe in Hector Bellerin probably because of experience. Ainsley has put in a good shift there. It's not his position, as he's pointed out to everybody in the media, but since Arteta has come in, I think I've seen his performances. He's improved his performances, because I think the style that Mikel wants to play is quite similar to that of City, and City have their kind of false fullbacks in a sense where they drift into the midfield they drift inwards to kind of help with the numbers in midfield, and I think that kind of helps Ainsley's game because we know he's naturally a centre mid. So I could argue his case, but I'm gonna put Hector in there. I don't know if you want to argue that.
I'd love to be able to, but this is the thing with Serge Aurier. There is a player in there somewhere where he is, though, is the biggest question I think every Spurs fan is trying to ask. Come with a massive reputation from PSG, and a lot of his assists weren't necessarily like through passes, like you could argue with other fullbacks. They sort of play wingers in and or whatnot. It was more crosses into the box. So we were thinking, brilliant. Kane might get a different type of service. We're still waiting for that. But then having said that, Trent Alexander-Arnold is the only right back who has registered more assists in the Premier League this season than Serge Aurier. It is one of the most craziest stats, I think, in the Premier League up until lockdown happened. It was like, where has that come from? Because there's just he is one tackle away from a card. I know you could argue like most players are, but in Aurier's case, it happens near enough all the time. A lot of mistakes happened. I would say he has improved under Mourinho, but then it was probably a case we couldn't get any worse because he was a weak link, and I think clubs targeted that. And yeah, I think I can't. I'd love to be able to argue Aurier, but I just can't. I can't bring myself, as not only as a Tottenham fan, but as a football person, I can't bring myself to do it really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give you Hector. I'll give you Hector for sure.
Cool.
Centre halves, then talk to me.
Centre halves. Do you know what? As much as I'd love to make a case for somebody called Socrates Papathopoulos, whatever his name is, and David Luiz, Guendouzi's twin brother, I think centre backs, seeing as we both play 4-3-2, 4 at the back. I think you, as a squad, before Mourinho came, what Pochettino built with your defence, with both Vertonghen and Alderweireld, those two at the back, I cannot think of a better defensive pairing in the league than those two. Like, you could probably, if you can think of one, great. I mean, Van Dijk and a Ghost, that doesn't count. But I think Alderweireld and Vertonghen, them two at the back, when they were playing at the back together, they were the two. And this is weird, being an Arsenal fan, but they have proven themselves with the defensive record that they've had together when playing in games. So, I'm sorry, just like you couldn't make a case for Serge Aurier, I just can't make a case for David Luiz and Socrates. Those are our starting centre backs. If Callum Chambers had 2 full seasons at Arsenal, I'd give him a case. But he's gone out on loan and played CDM with Fulham, 1 player of the season there, and has come back. Unfortunately, has gotten injured, but actually had a good start to his season and I think he would have revived his Arsenal career if Arteta was still in charge. But I don't know. I'm leaning more towards. I'm sorry, I can't make a case for Luiz and Socrates. They don't seem to link. They don't seem to gel together. They both have different playing styles. One of them is more aggressive than the other. The other is a bit more flary typed, which kind of it could work when it's not great. I mean, when you have 2 different type of players, they can definitely work together. I think if you give Pablo Mari a bit more time, he might show a bit of what he can do, but he's only had 1 full game in the league to show that. So yeah, I can't really make a case for Arsenal's central defenders. Yeah.
What about Holding or Mustafi? I can't believe you've left them. I can't believe you left Mustafi out of the reckoning there, and especially even Rob Holding, to be fair, because I think a lot of Arsenal fans would probably agree in the sense that Rob Holding is probably Arsenal's best centre back.
I believe, I can believe that I've left Mustafi out. He's been atrocious. I'm sorry. I can believe that. Yeah, Arteta's come in and has. I mean, I believe football is mainly a psychological game, and I do think that he has changed Mustafi's psychological kind of take on football, and the way that Mustafi has turned up to games and his professionalism has been second to none. He's really improved, and I don't know where that's come from. The same you could argue for Serge Aurier and the fact that he's improved under Mourinho, but we're still looking for that World Cup winner in Mustafi. He was a World Cup winner. Let's not forget that. and he did it at right back. So I'm confused. Like, if you can, I'm just, I'm confused right now. Like, confused.com. I just don't know where, like, yeah. So I can see, I know why I left Mustafi out. Holding, he is an intriguing one because, yes, you can make the argument that he's our best central defender at the club, as well as Callum Chambers. Before he got his disaster, that was an injury that I think really affected him psychologically because he was our best defender at the club. And Unai Emery saw something in him. And I think it was his best run of games since joining Arsenal from Bolton. And people saw that, yeah, he really turned up. And I had noticed that when he was out and he was injured, our form started to turn. And it turned for the worse. And everyone had realized that it was because of Holding being out. So you can argue that, but he hasn't had much game time this season. When he come back, he's been a bit shaky, and to come back from that kind of injury is kind of scary for any player psychologically. But I am happy with the decision. I'm content. I'm not happy necessarily, but I'm content with making that decision to kind of not even make a case for any of our centre backs. So yeah, I'm good.
Well, you say that. I mean, Tottenham defensively this season have been awful, like atrocious. It's almost like we hit the ceiling point of that Champions League final, and then it was like we forgot. I think a lot of the players just forgot how to play football. It was been ridiculous, and I think the defensive side of it has been exactly that. It's almost that we've forgotten how to defend. There's been times where we've been carved open. You know, I look back to Newcastle at home and Joel Linton's goal, and you just go in like, how has that even happened? It was it's just as if, you know, the players have forgotten how to defend, like I say, and almost forget to play football, if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still think, I know Yan is looking like he's on the decline. But I think he's still a calming influence in our back line. I think, you know, could also do a shift at left back and has done under Mourinho already. So yeah, I think, and obviously Toby, I think Mourinho's counting on him to be what, like, his man in that back line. You know, obviously rewarded with a new contract, everything like that. So, and you know, Mourinho famously wanted him at Man United. So I think, you know, those two, and like you mentioned, those two together sort of go like chalk and cheese, if you like.
Yeah.
Well, I say that they are like a partnership, you know, like salt, pepper, you know, all of those kind of things. Toby and Yan, kind of, you can't think of one without the other. And I think at times when Vertonghen hasn't played and it's maybe been Sanchez at the back, or, you know, it's been even, I know he's done very, very well since coming into the side, but Tanganga, Toby hasn't quite looked the same, and I don't think he does look the same when Vertonghen's not next to him. And I think it is because, like I say, Yan brings that air of calmness, if you like, at the back. But no, I think out of the centre back choices, I don't think you can look past Toby and Yan.
Yeah.
For sure. I think Sanchez is a fantastic centre back. Foyth hasn't played much at all this season, injuries and whatnot. I know Eric Dyer's done a shift there a couple of times, but hasn't really played there. Tanganga has come in, but has almost been sort of a, you know, he's played at right back, he's played at left back, he's also played at centre back, so he's almost kind of filled in. But no, I've been very, very impressed with JT, if you like, Japhet Tanganga, and whatnot. And I think, you know, in a few years' time, he will be a very, very good centre back, and I think will actually save Tottenham a lot of money, especially with the age profile of Alderweireld and Vertonghen. And I think, you know, with Tanganga coming through and impressing and doing well, like I say, it'll probably save Tottenham a lot of money in the future. Anyway, moving on to left back.
Left back. This I was looking forward to. out of the defensive positions because there is a young man who has the way he's come into the squad and has kept a level head on his shoulders and just kept humble, calm, and has shown a professionalism beyond his years and his game as well. The way he plays his game, like, I think he leads the league. Not leads the league. Sorry, he leads the Arsenal squad in assists this season, and he's only 18 years of age. I think you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka is not. Let's just remind people, like, Bukayo Saka is not a left back. He's a left mid, a left winger, and for him to, he was just shoot in to that spot. I remember Freddie Ljungberg put him in that role, and he even revealed to us that Saka wasn't particularly pleased to play there. But one thing that you can count on Saka is that if it's for the team, he will put his ego to one side and actually do the shift. And this is at 18 years of age. Can I remind people he's 18 years of age? Like, in football terms, that's like putting a nappy on him and putting him out on the field. Just putting a diaper on him and just saying, okay, go on, just learn your ropes. But his eagerness to learn, his eagerness to understand how to get better. And we all know about his natural technical ability. Naturally, he's a talent, but it's that willingness to also work hard. He's run up and down the field. He has produced some, I would argue, some match-winning performances. He's produced some wonderful assists. And like I said, at the age of 18, to come in and do that and play at to play in an elite league week in, week out now. Since Arteta's come in, he easily could have put Kolasinac back in the squad. I mean, I know Kolasinac has been injured, unfortunately, but Saka's come in and Arteta's stuck with it. And we've seen the performances now. And I wouldn't be surprised if later on in his career he does make a shift back from left mid to left back. I mean, the greats like Ashley Cole used to be a left winger. He's now been shifted back. Gareth Bale started off as left back, moved forward, but my point is that versatility to be able to play on that left side, on that left side, to play left wing up top, to play back and left wing back, even left mid, and then play at left back where there's more defensive duties. I give credit to him. I can't. I'm trying to think of somebody at Spurs that could like bring him out. I don't know. I can't think of anybody at the club, but I'm gonna say Bukayo Saka. Yeah, I'll give the floor to you now.
Left back, interesting one from a Tottenham perspective because we had Danny Rose, who subsequently now is on loan at Newcastle. But I think I want to get your thought. If Kieran Tierney, if he had been fit this season, obviously Tierney's had a lot of injuries and whatnot. If Kieran Tierney had been fit and been playing, do you think this left back debate is out of the question and Kieran Tierney would be in there?
I wouldn't say completely out of the question, but I would trust that his performances, if he were fit, would have answered my question to put him in a squad. Yeah, because I think Kieran Tierney has been a very consistent performer. He was a very consistent performer at Celtic. Again, he's only 22 years of age, so he saved the club a lot of money at the time when, you know, Celtic have an underrated academy crop of players. And Kieran Tierney came in, has played at a high level. Obviously, we won't compare the Scottish League to other top leagues, but he's played Champions League football. He's played top-level European football and has got caps for Celtic as well. I mean, Scotland as well. So he has that international experience too. So I do think Kearney would have come in and definitely would have shown everybody why he is who he is in terms of the consistency. He brings that consistency. And I think playing fullbacks, you need consistency. Those are one of the most difficult positions to play in football. And Kieran Tierney in the very few games that he's played for Arsenal has already got a couple of assists. I think one of the things that Arsenal fans were licking their lips for was the crosses, the delivery into the box for strikers to pounce on. I think everyone was waiting for that. But Saka has done that too. So that's what's interesting. Like, now we have those options at left back, and that makes it quite exciting heading into the future for Arsenal. But I do think Kieran Tierney would have definitely been in the squad too, in our combined 11.
Interesting. And you mentioned international experience. So let me bring somebody to the table now who has that. Ben Davies. Part of Wales' probably most successful period, obviously getting to semi-finals of the Euros and whatnot. I think Ben Davies gets a lot of unfair treatment from Tottenham fans. I think early on he got it because he wasn't Danny Rose. I think Ben Davies defensively is very, very sound. I don't see many wingers really take the mick out of him, if you like. I could probably recall one, and that was Sadio Mane away at Anfield in Tottenham's in our last season at White Hart Lane. That's probably the only player I've seen really give Davies a bit of a run around. I think defensively he's very, very sound. Like I said, he can get forward too and deliver a good ball into the box. International experience, as I mentioned, can also play it at centre back, and obviously has done a lot of the time, especially for Wales. And I think it says a lot from his perspective in that, you know, our first game under Mourinho, he was picked ahead of Danny Rose. And actually, if you look at his position in a lot of the time that he takes up, it is sort of in as a more of a defensive fullback in order to allow Aurier to get forward a bit more. So I think Davies offers a lot for Spurs. And like I say, that international experience, you know, can put in a tackle, can put in a shift, going forwards as well. So yeah, I think Ben Davies is a shout from me. I think obviously have to mention Cess, but I think Cess is more of a winger or a wing back as opposed to an out and out fullback. But if we're looking at, I know the modern game fullbacks get forward and everything else, but I don't think Cess has really had the impact that perhaps he would have wanted and every Spurs fan was hoping for so far. But yeah, I'm making a case for Ben Davies. So like I say, it's an open one, this, because of the fact that they're probably similar to right back, not an outstanding candidate. So, but do you know what? I'm going to be fair. I'm going to give it to Saka.
Oh, nice, cool. We'll give it to Saka.
I may have to double check on his spelling once we finish, but yeah, Bukayo Saka.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as you said, he's been a bit of a revelation since coming into the team and at Arsenal, and you know I know he's got that natural attacking ability from being a winger, but I think, you know, the what he's done at fullback, I think has been brilliant. And I think, like you said, for a young person to come into such a big club and perform in the way that he's performing, I think yeah, that's something that just sticks with me, and I'm going, yeah, I quite like that about that particular player. Yeah. So yeah, he's just going to get the nod. But I think Davies is probably was close, obviously, because like I say, he offers a lot for Spurs, and I think as well, you mentioned consistency. I think Ben Davies is quite consistent in his performances as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Right, centre mids. Here we go.
Oh,
here we go.
Can I even make a case for this? Okay, I am going to begin. Do you know what? I feel like, because there's two that are going to be in that kind of defensive centre mid role, I do feel like we could share that, like one player each. But we'll see. The first case I'm going to make is Lucas Torreira. We've been crying out for a defensive midfielder, somebody who will just get stuck in and doesn't mind doing the dirty work. And I give credit to the recruitment at the time. I think it's Sven Mislintat. I can't pronounce his name, but he was obviously at Dortmund at the time, and he's one of the best recruiters, I believe, in Europe. And he recruited Lucas Torreira from, you know, little Sampdoria in Serie A, and he's come in, and I think at the first half of his first season, which was last year, he was a revelation, like you mentioned with Saka, just getting stuck in, and just like really putting one for the fans and putting his he just put his all. He played for the badge. That's something that you noticed about him, and you noticed that he had a bit of quality in him. Like he can take long distance free kicks. I think he can take free kicks too, short distance as well. He has a good long range strike on him. And he can pass a bit around. I mean, he doesn't have the range that Xhaka has, the passing range that Xhaka has, but he's not stupid and he knows how to play the game. And I think the fact that, with his small physique, he's a bit like, I wouldn't go as far as to say he's like Kante, but he gives me Kante vibes. I don't know if that makes sense. He gives me, it is, as in he's just, I mean, we know that they're completely different people, the way they look, all of that, but he's everywhere. I think that's what I'm trying to point out. He just seems everywhere, especially defensively. He can pop up with the odd goal. I remember his first goal being in the 4-2 derby win against you guys. So that was also a good kind of introduction to the Arsenal fans. Score your first Arsenal goal in the North London derby. So in terms of centre mid, I can make a really good case for Torreira, and obviously him being with Arteta. Arteta has come in and he's played him a lot, and most of the games that he's played in, I think we have won. And you notice a difference when Torreira's out in the squad and the lack of security that we have in midfield. Because Torreira, like I said, he will just sit there and do the dirty work and doesn't push up as much. But he can get you the odd goal. I just really don't get why Unai Emery... I actually get why Unai Emery just tried to play him in a more advanced role because of his energy, his tenacity and his stamina. The fact that he could harass people down and kind of play that Jurgen Klopp Gegenpress defensive style. But I'm going to put Lucas Torreira in there. Like I said, we can share that defensive, that midfield, the holding kind of roles. In terms of another person I could put in there, I'd put Guendouzi.
That's it. No. That's it. You can't make a case for any other Arsenal. Like even Torreira, granted he scored against us, but I haven't seen him since. You know what I mean? It's kind of straight. I mean, like probably the only time I have seen him is, the game at Wembley, and I was impressed with him. I was impressed with him in that game. Like you said, he is like everywhere. I think he pretty much covered every single blade of grass that day. But I don't think you can seriously start throwing Shakas and all of them, Danny Ceballos and hands-on work experience and all of that kind of thing. I don't know if you can start throwing them guys into the debate because, we've got some class midfielders that probably won't even make this team.
Yeah, let's just, you know what, you saved me a bit because I think I was going to waffle with the other guy. So I'm going to stick with Torreira for now. Yeah, I'm going to stick with Torreira. You go ahead and you've got, like you said, I think midfield is where you guys excel in. So this is a tough one for you. So go ahead.
So I'll allow you to have Lucas Torreira. And the only reason is because we lack somebody like him in this Tottenham team. I wouldn't say we had it so much in Moussa Dembele, because like you said, I think Torreira is just a bit of a rat. He just goes around and, I wouldn't say, obviously Torreira's got a bit more quality than the fact he just smashes people, but he is that enforcer on the pitch that will break play up a lot of the time. I'm not saying that perhaps Dembele didn't, but I think Dembele did it in other ways. But I think, Tottenham don't have that. But from a Tottenham perspective, I think, I'm going to reel off some names. I'm going to reel off Harry Winks, who for me is probably one of the most underrated English midfielders going, because England have long wished for a player to keep the ball. We have one and we're disregarding him. I think he's so disrespected for that fact that he just simply keeps the ball. Tanguy Ndombele. Okay, it probably hasn't worked and we haven't seen the full repertoire from Ndombele just yet, but there's been flashes from Ndombele. But I do think he is a completely different type of midfield player to one that Tottenham fans thought that they were going to get, because I think he's a lot more cuter on the ball. So everybody thought when Ndombele was coming in, he was like Moussa Dembele 2.0 and all of this. And yes, he's a very powerful guy, but actually on the ball, he's much better in my opinion than a lot of midfield players. I love the way that he takes the ball, he draws players in, and then can turn out. And actually, he's cute in spotting passes and finding players in pockets of space as well is Ndombele. But like I say, I think it. A lot of people say when players come from a different league to the Premier League, it takes them that season, if you like, to bed in. I think we are getting that with Ndombele at the minute. He had his pick of any top European club. Your Barcelona's, your Real Madrid. He picked Tottenham, and now subsequently he's being linked with Barcelona yet again. So yeah, you've got Ndombele. I mean, I'm not going to make a case for Sissoko, but he could probably, his second touch is usually a tackle. So yeah, I can't really make a case for Big Moose. I'm not going to make a case for Eric Dyer either, because I think there's been times where he has been his namesake, Dyer. I think Jedson Fernandez, I don't think we've seen enough of just yet. So for me, it's down to Ndombele and Winks.
Yeah.
So who are you going for, Ndombele or Winks? Because for me, I it's a difficult one because I can't really sort of pick between the two, because I think both have really, really good qualities.
Seeing as the formation that we obviously set up as a 4-2-3-1, if I had to combine two and have Torreira as the guy who does all the dirty work, I think it's essential that we need a ball-keeping player. So I'm going to go with Harry Winks.
Harry Winks is in. Love it. Right midfield.
This is interesting because I can make a case, but you had obviously tried to make a case in terms of Ndombele's first full season, and Tottenham fans are kind of getting that with him in terms of he being from a foreign league and trying to acclimatize to the level of intensity in the Premier League. I think that's what you guys are getting, and I think that applies to Arsenal fans as well when we look at right midfield and we talk about Nicolas Pepe. People need to understand that his name's not Nicholas, it's Nicolas. Let's just get that out there. But Nicolas Pepe I think he has been a very good addition to the squad. We, as an Arsenal, a player who can carry the ball and has the ball retention that he has and carry it up for 50, 60 yards. His dribbling is insane. And I think Arsenal fans have been impatient because I get it. He's come with the price tag and he has come from a personal record season where himself scoring 22 goals and 11 assists. I think he was second in all top 5 leagues last season in terms of goal contributions, goals and assists, only behind the GOAT, which is Messi. And that in itself isn't the best in terms of quality, but he produced. He did what was needed, and I think he played under Bielsa for a bit before Bielsa left at Lille. But anyways, we're talking about Arsenal now. He has a good goal contribution. I think he scored 6 or 7 goals and has produced 9 assists max, which is okay for a return for somebody in their first full season coming to a different league. But I think what people will look at in terms of stats and goals and assists, and they will judge him from there. But I want to judge him from the overall contribution he brings to the game, and he is a person where if Arsenal as a team are not performing well, give him the ball, and I think he can produce something in a matter of seconds. And it could be a beautiful strike from long range, cutting in, that kind of Robin style, cutting in on his left foot and whipping one, or driving at the defense with his dribbling ability and drawing potentially a foul in a dangerous area, or potentially setting somebody up. I have been to a couple of games this season, and I've seen him, as soon as he gets the ball, Arsenal fans slowly start to rise off their feet. And I haven't seen that in a number of years. Probably like Sanchez, obviously, we know when he was at the club, had that kind of it factor as well. And there's a bit of arrogance that I don't think people realize about Nicolas Pepe. I think he knows that he's got it. And I think he's just betting his time. And I think next season, obviously with the lockdown coming in, I think we were actually going to see the best of Nicolas Pepe in the second season, I think, because he produced some really good performances the season in the second half of the season, notably against United. He was the reason why we had the first win under Arteta. Pepe absolutely rinsed Luke Shaw, rinsed him, like the old Rinse FM radio station. But anyways, he rinsed Luke Shaw. You also had the game against Newcastle where he bagged a goal and set up two. So he can definitely bring it in there. So I'm gonna go with Nicolas Pepe. I'll let you have the floor.
So let me bring to the table somebody who, if we take price tags into consideration, you could get a couple of this for this player for how much Pepe costs and still have some change left over. In fact, since Pepe last scored for Arsenal, this player was playing in Holland. He signed for Tottenham and scored. And in between that time, at the time, 4.5 weeks had gone by. And there was one famous line of commentary from Martin Tyler on his debut. Stevie Wonder, Stevie Bergvin. Oh my goodness. Listen, Stevie Bergvin, to come in. I know he's not been there long, like at all, but he has come in and made an impact already. I don't think it gets better than doing what he did kind of on his debut. I think it's probably only bettered, if you like, by Danny Rose on Danny Rose's debut when he scored that goal all those years ago. I think it was about 10 years ago, actually, and that popped up on my social media very, very recently. But he has been brilliant since coming in, and puts a shift in. We've seen glimpses of a little bit of quality in there. Hasn't really had the opportunity to get going or whatnot, but he is a really, really exciting player. And it also in and around the Holland squad, and we all know the depth of talent that Holland have got, especially the younger ones coming through. So yeah, for me, I think Stevie Bergvin also has to be in with a shout. Eric Lamela too, I think, has to get some form of a mention because he just turns up for these big games and does it. For me, there's Eric Lamela. So, well, I say turns up and does it. I think the biggest thing with Lamela was him in that game at Wembley and telling Jack Wilshere what he thought of him. And I thought that Eric Lamela needed to get knighted and needed a statue. I can't repeat what Lamela had said for certain reasons. However, I do believe that he puts in a massive shift for us. And going. So Eric Lamela also needs a bit of consideration in there as well. I don't know what you think, but yeah, like I say, for me, it's a toss up between Bergvin and Lamela.
Well, I think I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to decide who you could use to kind of try and rival Pepe. But I think Pepe trumps both of them in the fact that he has had a bit more time to showcase. Just if I'm just talking on the basis of this season, I think he's had more to show and has produced. We obviously know the price tag, but I do think Stevie will come very good. I think the impact that he's had immediately in the 4.5 weeks has been astounding. I'm like, credit where credit's due. That goal, as Martin Tyler said, Stevie Wonder, to have that instant control on the chest. It's come at him with velocity at speed, and he's just put it dead ball on his chest, boom, volleyed it into the corner. Can't get a better debut goal than that to announce himself to the league. So I'd put him in. I think I'd probably for your argument, I'd put Stevie ahead of Lamela just because of the impact that he's had coming into the squad. But I don't think both of them, as of now, can rival Pepe in terms of producing, in terms of the stuff that they've been able to that he's been able to produce. Okay. I don't know. That's just my argument.
Here's a card that I forgot to play. Lucas Moura, Tottenham legend. We all know why he's a Tottenham legend. That famous night in Amsterdam, and I've recently watched the Champions League quarterfinal game, against Manchester City, and looking at the performance that he put in again that night, he was fantastic. I think his Tottenham career has been very up and down so far. Don't get me wrong, and I think as Spurs fans we sometimes want to see a little bit more from him. However, if I look at when he has come into the team, it's always, majority of the time, it has come in and having to do a job kind of elsewhere, and not naturally playing in his position that he feels he's best in, which is out on that right hand side. But listen, when this guy gets the ball and gets going, good luck catching him, because he is very, very quick, draws a lot of fouls. As well, can nick a goal too, and actually does a lot of unselfish stuff and unselfish work for the team. So that's my case for Lucas Moura in this team.
Make a good case for Lucas, especially with that historic treble in Amsterdam. But again, I'm just going on the basis, it's tough in this position, just because I think if we're looking at all four players, so you've brought up Stevie, Eric Lamela, and Lucas Moura, I'd probably have to put Lucas Moura ahead of those two. And Lucas Moura will probably get the nod in ahead of Pepe in terms of what he's been able to do and, produce a shift when he's come into play. And obviously you can I think that night at Amsterdam kind of trumps everything else. But I'm just going off the basis of this season currently. I think Pepe has produced more than those three, not combined, but individually. If you compare them individually, I think Pepe has produced a bit more. But that's kind of my stance of
how was Pepe trumped Bergvin? The last since I read the stats to you, the last time in the gap between before he scored, 4.5 weeks had passed. Bergvin has switched from PSV to Tottenham and managed to bag himself. And also I think Lucas is also fairly competent in the air. I'm not saying he's great in the air, but he's competent in the air. And I think up against centre backs, he certainly goes to challenge and whatnot. I think Lamela, yes, it's probably if you're putting a bet on any game and Lamela's starting, he's going to get booked. But I think he does put in a bit of a shift as well, and has that Argentinian kind of steel, if you like, and I think in big games he brings it, and also he's quite good in terms of instigating a press high up the pitch, which I haven't seen Pepe do. Or anything like that. So that's my case for them boys ahead of Pepe. I don't think we've seen enough of Pepe yet to have him in the team personally, because I think there's more. There's probably going to be more to come from Pepe.
I think that's the same argument with Stevie as well. Like, okay, 4.5 weeks, he's able to bag a goal and transfer and like move from, I don't know, from wherever Eindhoven has to what London has. Like, okay, cool. But I think 4.5 weeks compared to the 7 months or 6 months that Pepe has been able to come in and just play the game. Yes, I think one area where Pepe can improve, and I think right now between Stevie and Pepe, we haven't seen the best of them. And I think next season those two are going to be unleashed. I hope so. In terms of from a neutral football perspective, just to see wingers play a beautiful game. But I just think if you're just looking at the season, I just think Pepe has. I think it's a bit unfair to not count all the other kind of games, because unfortunately Emery didn't see a lot. I don't know why Emery would put Pepe on the bench, but when Pepe did come on, he did bring a spark. I believe he did bring a spark. It probably wasn't enough to change the game simply because he was brought in very late, and Unai Emery with his substitutions he was very radical, and we didn't know when he was going to make a substitution. He could have made a substitution after 30 seconds, for all I know. But I'm gonna stick with my stance on Pepe. I feel like I'm gonna stick with my stance on him, man.
But then your argument of we haven't seen enough of him yet trumps it. So that leaves, if we haven't seen enough of Pepe yet, that leaves Eric, Coco, Lamela, and Lucas Moura, and it's a toss up between those two. Then, if you're saying that both Pepe and Bergvin, there's more to come, you can't realistically put a player in where you've got more to come, especially in a position where there are other players that have perhaps done a little bit more than both of them.
Okay, fair enough, because I was looking at this, between those 4 players, I was looking at this season. But if we're going on the basis in terms of what they've kind of offered to the club, then it makes sense. I'm accepting of either between Lucas and Lamela. I'd personally put Lucas in there. I'd put Lucas.
Lucas Moura gets the vote. Lucas Moura gets the vote. Right, left midfield. For me, there's only one. There's only one player.
Oh, this is annoying because
there's only one player for me that is here. But come on.
I know, because this is annoying. I feel like we have to make some verbal agreement, because I can make a very good case of a left midfielder, because I already know who's going up top. But left mid, this is hard, man. I think this is going to be the hardest debate of all, because we have, as much as I don't like your team, my favorite player actually have a favorite player from your team. Can you believe? And I'm a Gooner. The reason I say that is because the way this man plays, his energy, he buzzes around the field. I can't believe I'm starting with him, then my player. But this is really hard. I think I'm talking about. I'm talking about Heung-Min Son. Heung-Min Son has, for me, I believe he's Tottenham's most important player. I don't care what anyone says to me about Harry Kane. I will make an argument, even though I'm not a Tottenham fan, about Heung-Min Son. Because his smile is very, that smile that he brings just bring me... I'm not saying he's Ronaldinho type in terms of quality, because Ronaldinho is probably the most gifted footballer that I've seen with a ball at his feet. But in terms of just that energy, smile, regardless of what's going on, Son smiles regardless. He puts a happy face, and I think that's what you need in football. And I think it's a lesson to young players these days. So just continue to play with a smile on their face. But let's not forget how much he runs, his speed, his importance in big games. Wow, I'm really making a case for Son here. The person I was going to make for Arsenal was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, because he's played most of... I watched a video recently by Tifo Football, if you know, that how Aubameyang has actually been, even though some fans may argue that he's a striker, he plays down the middle, he's actually been effective down the left. And I saw in that video that all of his goals, the majority of his goals have come from the left wing. And and less than half of it has come from playing down the middle. He, with his age, he's obviously turning 31, but he's still putting a shift out there. And with him becoming Arsenal captain, I think he's taken the responsibility very well. He's already scored 17 goals this season, more than your number 10 right now, just this season. I think since he joined the league, he scored over. I think I can't remember how many goals he scored, but he's definitely, since he's joined the league, he's up there in terms of top 5 strikers in the league. But he's scored the majority of his games down his left, started most of his games down the left midfield as well. Can put in a shift. Since Arteta's come in, he's put in even more of a defensive contribution. But this is tough. Like, I actually don't know. Like, I'm gonna stick with Aubameyang just because of he saved us on countless occasions, especially this season. And his goal record since he's joined us has been remarkable. And he's given us shades of Thierry. He's not Thierry himself, but he's given us shades. So I'm gonna go with Aubameyang for Arsenal left midfield. But I know you can make a very good case for Heung-Min Son. I'll let you. I think I've made the case for you, but anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. I think you've done my work for me, which was nice. Heung-Min Son, wow. Where would we be? I think without his contribution to the team. From a goals perspective, stepped up last season when Kane got injured massively. Didn't particularly get off to the best of starts in his Tottenham career. He was in and out of the team a lot of the time, but he's become an invaluable asset to the football club. And actually, when I think about how much money he cost, 18 million rising to 22, that is a bargain. Yeah. It's almost bordering on daylight robbery, considering what he has brought to the club. And from a merchandising point of view, we've got that back. Whatever outlay we paid on him, we've got that back tenfold. But no, I think on the pitch, Heung-Min Son has just been brilliant. Like you said, his infectious nature as a person rubs off on everybody within the football club, from playing staff to non-playing staff. Rubs off on fans, and I think when he's on that left-hand side facing up a fullback, I don't think there's many players that sort of have a thing in their final third. I think if you look at Ian Robben, it was on the right, cutting in, shooting on the left. With Sonny, it's facing up a fullback, step over, touch out of his feet, and he either crosses or shoots. So I think, there's like I said, there's not many players that have that thing that they do. But Sonny has it.
I was going to point out that, by the way, he's the best 2-footed player in the league. Like, that's my opinion. It like that you said, he could cross or shoot, but it's the ability to go on both sides and have no trouble doing that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you're bigging him up as well gives us, well, there's the argument. He's got to go in surely on that left-hand side. For me, and he's been unselfish in sacrificing probably his best position, which for me is out on that left hand side. He's sacrificed it to play through the middle. He's played on the right. He can also play as a 10, and almost more of a secondary striker role, off of a big man such as when we had Llorente and things like that. But he is just such a threat going forward. So much pace. And whatnot, and I just think I can't look past Heung-Min Son to go left wing or left midfield in this team.
I have not a request, but I have like an offer, because in terms of attacking mid, I am never ever going to make a case for Mesut Ozil, not because of, I think it's just the fact that he's come with a price tag, and I think he's been very stagnant in terms of his career since he's joined Arsenal. I don't think he's performed at the level that we know he can perform. And now it's very difficult to offload his wages because he's obviously on 350k a week and just hasn't been performing consistently. Yes, Arteta's come in, and because I think of the respect that he has for Mikel as a former teammate, he's really improved his performances. I mean, this is the Ozil that we've wanted for a very long time, but it hasn't been consistent. So my offer is, I know you can make a case for Ali in there, but we could put Aubameyang as a second striker and put Kane up top and end this right now.
I mean, with Aubameyang, I think as good as he has been since joining Arsenal, right? If I look at the crucial moments and those big moments in his time at Arsenal, if I look back at that penalty miss at Wembley, that missed chance against Brighton, that missed chance against Olympiacos in the Europa League, you know, those big crucial, when you're looking for your main talisman, your main guy to step up in those moments, you know, it's there to see that Aubameyang just hasn't done it. If we're going 4-4-2, okay, I would prefer, if I'm having to give up one slot here, I would prefer to put Lacazette and Kane up top as opposed to Aubameyang. Because, like I say, for me, Aubameyang in those crucial moments whereby the ball is in and around the penalty area, and you need your guy to put the ball in the back of the net to save you. Aubameyang for me hasn't quite done it. I mean, you can make a case, you know, like the free kick against Aston Villa, blah blah blah. But those big moments, you know, like I say, that penalty miss at Wembley and all of that, and that missed chance against Brighton, when you guys needed those points to push you into that top four. You know, that chance against Olympiacos to put you through to the next round of the Europa League. He's sort of let you guys down in that respect. And like I say, I mean, Harry Kane's going in anyway because of his goal record in North London derbies, and you know, is up there, if not the best number 9 in world football. But if we're having a trade-off, I mean, I'm finding it hard with Aubameyang because, like I say, if I'm waiting for that centre forward if I'm a number 10, if I'm say an Ozil or Ceballos or Lo Celso or Dele, and I'm playing a ball through, who's more likely to put the ball in the back of the net? I know Harry Kane 9 times out of 10 is going to do that, or at least get it on target. Do I have that same level of confidence with Aubameyang? Only, you could probably argue, coming in off the left, as you mentioned earlier. But I think Lacazette I'm more confident, from a player's perspective, I'm more confident sliding in Lacazette from a different range of places in the final third. If we're talking about final third entries here, I'm more confident at playing Lacazette in different parts of that final third than I am with Aubameyang.
Cool. I mean, I didn't want to put Lacazette in terms of attacking mid. I mean, if we're talking second striker role, he can do that. But I guess if I'm trying to focus it from a player perspective, it makes sense to have a number 10 in there just because, like you said, sliding through balls in and just finding those little gaps for your striker to kind of take care of the situation. So, I mean, it's your choice. I mean, if we go 4-4-2, I can happily put Lacazette and Aubameyang and Kane in there because I think that if you actually put them in the same squad, I actually think they do well together because one's a bit more traditional number 9 type in terms of Kane. He can hold. I think Kane's hold-up players are great. I think Lacazette is more of a dribbler than Kane, so they could feed off each other in a sense. If I'm talking like tactics and bring them into the squad, but yeah, I mean, how do you want to go about ending this?
Well, the thing is, Kane is probably one of Tottenham's best passers of a football. Like, his passing range is ridiculous, by the way, and that is probably one of the most underrated parts of Harry Kane's game.
Yeah.
You mentioned there that Kane is more of a traditional number 9. I think that has come more recently with Mourinho, in terms of back to goal and, you know, a bit more. Obviously, Mourinho had Lukaku and Drogba and Milito and players like that from past clubs. I think we've seen a bit more of that side to Harry Kane since Mourinho's come in. However, by and large, under Pochettino, he's a more rounded centre forward. You know, he can drop in and find pockets of space and play players in. and everything else like that. Whereas I think Lacazette is more of a striker. Like I would probably argue Lacazette is more of I would class him as a fox in the box type of centre forward, where he snuffs out opportunities and hits it. A little bit similar in that respect to Jermaine Defoe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but then you're leaving out Dele Alli, who would always turn up for a big game. You're leaving out Giovanni Lo Celso, who, as I mentioned earlier, has been a revelation for Tottenham since he's come into the team, not since he signed, obviously subsequently signed on a permanent deal. So I'm going to leave the ball in your court for this one. Are we dropping Kane in as a 10 and having Lacazette as a number 9? Are we going 4-4-2 old school and going against almost what both teams play usually? Or is Dele coming in because of his goals and his industrial work that he does off the ball, his silkiness? I mean, if I look at that goal at the Emirates, I mean, that's just... I mean, if that was scored by an Arsenal player, for example, you boys would still be going on about it. But because it's just, for us, it's like, it's what Dele does kind of thing. We don't hype it up as much. I mean, that goal popped up on my socials over the last couple of days, and I'm just there like, the outrageousness of that finish. That finish was ridiculous, and Harry Kane actually played him through. So there's my validation, if you like, for Kane's passing range, because Kane's picked the ball up on the halfway line and dug out an outrageous pass through to Dele, whose first touch was sublime. He's waiting for Cech to almost go down and just lifts it over him. And, you know, I think, and I always recall Dele's first North London derby, there was a lot of talk about, 19 years of age, playing your first North London derby, and actually he was probably one of the best players on the pitch that night. So I'll always make a case for Dele, because I think he's criminally underrated as a footballer. And I've heard lots of Spurs fans going, it's a defining season for him. He's 23, for goodness sake. Well, he's just turned 24 now, but he's still got a lot of football ahead of him. He's still got another 10 years, if you like, at the top. And it's like, his stats also back up, at similar ages to, midfielders that have been spoken about in the greatest of all time in terms of English midfielders. I'm talking Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, those types. Dele's numbers in that respect, if we're talking from when they were the same age, Dele trumps them all the time. But then I think Lo Celso has come in and gives a little bit more guile, and whatnot. So, the decision, I'm leaving this one down to you, big man.
Okay, it just seems very difficult to have a Spurs front four. It sickens me to think that
that front four can do some serious damage.
It could.
It's just defensively we've not been great this season.
It could. It actually could. Oh, okay.
If I'm gonna probe you on it, I'm thinking Dele for this number 10 role. If I'm gonna probe this player, it's got to be Dele.
Do you know what? Oh man, because I get the case that you've made for Aubameyang, but at the same time, just having those two on the field, Aubameyang and Kane, is just deadly and that's what I'm thinking from that perspective. I'm thinking that is a deadly perspective.
So let me put this one to you, right? So Alan Shearer, or Ian Wright, famously on Match of the Day, said, "Where would Arsenal be without Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's goals? Probably mid-table." To which Alan Shearer turned around and said, "Arsenal actually are mid-table." So, in that respect, I know obviously goals equate to points and all of that, but just going off that particular point, Aubameyang's goals have largely been fairly irrelevant. Like, it wouldn't have. I meant, as I mentioned, goals equate to points in terms of games and stuff like that. But when you think about it in terms of, well, would Arsenal still be mid-table without Aubameyang's goals? Probably. So yeah, for me, I just find it a bit tough to put Aubameyang in because, like I said, I don't think Aubameyang's had that good of an impact on the team cohesion and the team unit on the field, probably as Lacazette has. When I was watching the Derby game, Lacazette was, like you said, here, there, and everywhere in that pressing phase of Arsenal's play, whereas Aubameyang wasn't. Yeah, Aubameyang still carries a threat going forward. Don't get me wrong, but I think Lacazette. I would prefer in my team, I would prefer probably Lacazette over Aubameyang personally.
I would too. I can't lie. I'm just trying to make I'm trying to just. I just think it's just the statistical.
And listen. Pierre don't want to come out here no more. Yeah, he's apparently reading reports. Yeah, he's not signing a new deal either. So I think Pierre don't want to come out here no more. So yeah, I think I can't. I'm struggling with Aubameyang. I think there's other players that trump Aubameyang.
No, I think I personally put Lacazette in there just because I think he does a bit more than Aubameyang. But it just seems wrong to restrict Kane in that number 10 role, even though, like you said, his passing range is very impressive for like you said, it's an underrated part of his game that people don't actually realize. So I'm gonna leave it as the formation as we did, 4-2-3-1, and yeah, I think Ali and Kane to kind of round out everything else. So it just feels wrong to just change the formation in that respect. So I'm gonna leave it as it is, and that's our front four. Yeah.
Let me just get this in right, because there are 3 Arsenal players in this North London derby combined 11. So I'm just going to recap our North London derby combined 11. So in goal we have France number 1, Tottenham number 1, captain for both, World Cup winner Hugo Lloris is in net for us, just ahead of Bird Leno. We've gone with a back 4 of Spanish right back Hector Bellerin. And I think we were both of the opinion that one was a bit of an interesting one, because I think both aren't outstanding in terms of Bellerin and Aurier. But then I think if any other team had Serge Aurier, I think you'd put anyone else in ahead of them. Centre halves, the Belgian pair, Salt and Pepper, Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen. And left back, surprise inclusion of England youth international Bukayo Saka. And I think Saka's contribution since coming into the Arsenal team has just trumped Ben Davis in that respect. And going back to Toby and Yan, a solid partnership for defensively over a sustained period of time. Midfield 2 of Uruguayan Lucas Torreira is more of a ball-winning type of midfield player, and I think his energy within the midfield and his tenaciousness within that would be an asset for sure. Alongside him, the Hemel Hempstead, Xavi, Harry Winks. People question what he does. It's fairly simple. He keeps the ball. And I think every team will need a player like that just keeps the ball, keeps it simple. But actually, I think his passing range has improved massively since establishing himself into the Tottenham team. Now we go on to the front 4, the business end of the pitch. Right midfield, we have Brazilian Lucas Moura, Tottenham legend for that night in Amsterdam, for sure. On the left, Heung-Min Son, Sonaldo, unbelievable ability to be able to go both ways and an abundance of pace, and never seems to be knackered after a game really either, despite the shift that he does put in. In the number 10 role, he only costs, by the way, £5 million. And it's Dele Alli. As the Spurs fans sing, he only costs 5 mil. He's better than Ozil. And yeah, I think his big game mentality, if you like, and the fact he scores a lot in big games, Chelsea fans will know that for sure, because he usually scores against them. and stuff. And I was even watching a replay of the last North London derby at White Hart Lane earlier today, and his performance was excellent, and he even scored in that as well. And lastly, the man with the most goals in North London derbies, England's captain, Harry Kane, knows how to score from 12 yards, unlike the Gabonese centre forward that plays for Arsenal. Some people call him the Gabonese Jamie Vardy, or even ahead of Alexandre Lacazette, and he's been dubbed the French Darren Bent on a few occasions. But Harry Kane is our number 9 for this particular team, and like I say, with the most goals in North London derbies. Nelson, out of this combined 11, we're going to need a captain. We're going to need a leader. Who are you picking?
I'm going to go with... it's a good question, actually. I've got 2 candidates. I've got Harry Kane. They're both national team captains, so between Harry Kane and Hugo Lloris. Hugo obviously sees everything from his perspective in goal, so he's able to kind of marshal from both perspectives in terms of Harry. If Harry doesn't have the ball when it's behind him, he can have a look back and help his players get into position and lead from there. He kind of leads from the front, and then you got Hugo who leads from the back, but marshals the team in the way that he does really, and performs in terms of the saves that he makes and can just claw out something out of nowhere. I'm gonna go with Hugo.
You going with Hugo?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Hugo.
Okay. Well, that's put a spanner in the works for me, because I was going with Harry Kane, and my reasoning is because he is that particular player that sets standards. I think every club has that player that sets the standard within their football club, that, just is determined to get better and become the best in their position. I think he is that player that is the first in and the last to leave the training pitch. And I think, I'm not saying all the other guys aren't, but I think Harry Kane is so dedicated to his craft. I just think he's more of a natural leader, in the sense that he will say a lot more in the dressing room, I feel, than Lloris would, or any of the other players would. I think he's got more of a voice in the changing room, and actually I think that goes a long way. So for me, Captain Kane.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, because it's between 2 Tottenham players, I feel like if you had to go, who would you go with? If you go with Kane, and I'm good with Kane. I'm not saying that Hugo's a better captain than Kane, but those were definitely the 2 candidates, because one's a World Cup winner and has captained the side, and the other is the current captain of the England national team, and has done well, like being the captain for the team. So he leads from the front. So yeah, if we can go with Kane, I'm good with Kane. I'm actually good with Kane.
Okay, nice one. Captain Kane it is. And just a final point, Nelson.
Yeah.
Had the game gone ahead,
Yeah.
I want to get a score prediction from you.
My prediction.
Yeah.
Of the game, it would have been 2-2. That's my prediction.
Desmond,
2-2.
nice.
2-2.
Desmond.
Yeah.
Okay, my prediction would have been, I've got two score lines in mind.
Yeah.
So it was either a 1-0 to Tottenham, Harry Kane penalty, or it would have been 2-1 to Tottenham. And my only reason for the 2-1 is that I think Tottenham defensively have, and as I mentioned earlier, not been great this season. So I feel like Arsenal would have probably scored at some point during the game. But there's just something that tells me it would have been a very even game. I wouldn't have said it would have probably been the worst North London derby in recent history, but obviously both teams are in very similar moments, if you like, in the sense that, we can't, as fans, we can't really banter each other too much this season, because we've sort of been as bad as each other really overall. So yeah, I think that may have come out in the game. Listen, I know form goes out the window on Derby Day and whatnot, but I just think with this one it might have just brought out the fact that both teams sort of are where they are in this moment, which leads me to a 1-0, but then a 2-1. I think that, you know, Delhi would have been up for the game. I think Kane, as I mentioned earlier, Kane would have been fit, and if Kane's fit, he scores, um, and all of that kind of thing. So, and like I say, I think Arsenal would have probably got a goal at the very least. So those were my score predictions for sure. And I can't pick between the two. I think earlier I was more leaning towards a 2-1, but I think as the conversation's gone on, I'm sort of leaning a bit more towards a 1-0.
Cool.
I don't think there would have been that many goals in it. I think it'd have been very, very tight, very cagey.
Yeah.
I think Arteta would have looked to have made tried to put his stamp on a big game, and I think there's no bigger one that for the Arsenal fans certainly than against Tottenham. And then Mourinho, you've got the factor that he very rarely loses against Arsenal, and if he has, it's probably only once, out of my recent memory for sure. So I think we would have got something out of it. But then I think Mourinho's quite fortunate in the sense that I think the fans are giving him a lot of time and a lot of grace, because they've realised almost what he's walked into. He's walked into if you like, a similar situation to what Pochettino walked in the fact that the dressing room was slightly broken. I think the only difference is that with Pochettino, you had players that necessarily didn't want to be there. You know, they're on fairly big money. It was more of a job. Whereas I think Mourinho now has walked in, and it's more of a sense of players perhaps not wanting to be there. And I think quite a few fans at times this season have realised that Pochettino overachieved massively with Tottenham. I know there was no tangible success in terms of trophies, but I think a lot of the time Tottenham overachieved in terms of where we ended up finishing in terms of the league and everything else like that. But you know, there's still certain situations that with Mourinho when he come in that he had to address and that he had to sort. So, but yeah, I think his added fact that he very rarely loses against Arsenal would have worked in our favour for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely. I definitely think it was a psychological one, but I'm gonna give him a 2-2 just because I think, like you said, Arteta would have wanted to make a statement about the players. Difference with the players have actually played for the manager, and we've been unbeaten this year, so that form I think would have carried on until we actually face you lot. Where it's just a cup final now, and form's out of the question. So I'm gonna stick with the 2-2 prediction that I made.
Perfect. That is it, guys, for us for today. Just leaves me to thank Nelson once again for joining us today and talking sort of all things North London and even surrendering a front four for Tottenham in our combined 11 as well. Guys, don't forget, follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. WM32 Football is where you can find us. We're also on Spotify. Give us a follow on there. Again, WM32 Football. And on YouTube as well. So please like this, comment on it if you feel like there's any players that should have been in or any that we didn't mention or we missed out. So drop a comment on that. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Nelson, thank you very, very much for joining us today. We both know that North London probably would have been lily white after the game today anyway. But like I say, thank you for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Wes. We'll just have to wait and see if they reopen the season again, because I'm sure North London would have been red. But anyways, always a pleasure coming on to the show, and stay safe, everybody.
Yes, stay safe, Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you very much.